There comes a moment in every man's life when he stops and quietly asks himself, why don't they take me seriously? Why do people dismiss your words? Why does your partner test your limits? Why does the respect you long for feel just out of reach? It's not because you're not capable. It's not because you're not intelligent. And it's definitely not because you're not enough. It's because somewhere along the way, you've allowed habits to take root. Habits that slowly erode your dignity. I'm not here to shame you. I'm here to wake you up the way Stoicism once woke me up. You see, Marcus Aurelius didn't become the most respected emperor of Rome by chance. He earned that respect through daily choices often invisible to the world, but deeply visible to himself. He understood that how a man carries himself in private is what defines how others receive him in public. And that's what this video is about. We're going to explore 7 habits that, if left unchecked, will silently drain the respect out of your relationships, your career, and your sense of self. Habits that many men excuse, defend, or don't even realize are undermining them. But once you see them clearly, you can begin the process of removing them one by one. Because real strength isn't loud. It's disciplined. It's deliberate. And it begins with self-respect. So if you've ever felt underestimated, overlooked, or quietly disrespected, stay with me, because today's message is not about changing the world around you. It's about changing the foundation within you. Let's begin. Part 1. Taking credit for others' work. Why real men don't borrow glory. Let me begin with something uncomfortable but necessary. If you've ever taken credit for someone else's work, even just a little, you weren't being clever. You were being insecure. Now I say that not to shame you, but to shake you. Because I've been there. Earlier in my career, I remember sitting in meetings subtly framing my words just enough to imply that a win was more mine than it really was. I wasn't lying, but I sure wasn't honest either. And here's what I learned the hard way. A man who borrows credit is announcing to the world that he doesn't believe he has enough of his own. Marcus Aurelius said, "Do not waste time arguing what a good man should be. Be one." A good man doesn't need to steal the light. He becomes the light slowly, silently, consistently, by showing up, doing the work, and letting others shine alongside him. I want you to imagine this. You're on a team. You've all worked hard, but one of your teammates stayed up late, triple-checked the details, solved the toughest problems. When it comes time to present, you speak first. And instead of saying John was the one who caught the error that saved us, you just say, "We caught it in time." No harm, right? Wrong. In that moment, you've robbed John of his dignity and yourself of your integrity. And trust me, people notice. Even if John doesn't say anything, even if the team applauds you, even if the moment passes quietly, the truth will echo in the room long after you've left it. And what's worse, you'll feel it. You'll feel that quiet guilt deep in your gut. Because real men know when they've betrayed something important inside them, even if no one else calls them out. Here's the deeper Stoic truth. You don't need someone else's praise to feel valuable. And if you do, that's a sign it's time to turn inward, not outward. The Stoics didn't build confidence by comparing or competing. They built it by returning again and again to character. That's where self-respect begins. That's where respect from others grows. We live in a world obsessed with attention followers, credit, likes, applause. But a Stoic man doesn't chase the spotlight. He prepares in the dark. He leads without needing to be seen. And because of that, when he does speak, people listen. Let me give you a story. A friend of mine, a teacher in a small public school, once mentored a new colleague, a young woman fresh out of college. He helped her build her curriculum, offered guidance, supported her emotionally through rough patches. At the end of the year, she received a teaching award and never mentioned his help. Not once. No thank you, no acknowledgement. You know what he told me? He said, "It hurt, but it reminded me why I helped in the first place. It wasn't for credit. It was to pass something on." That's Stoic humility. That's strength. Because real strength doesn't need recognition. It needs purpose. Now, I'm not saying we should stay silent forever. Giving credit where it's due also means speaking up for others, especially when they're overlooked. Stoic virtue is not passive. It doesn't hide. It acts in alignment with truth, even when truth is inconvenient. So if you've made this mistake in the past, taken more credit than you deserved, minimized someone else's part, stayed quiet when you should have spoken up, own it. Don't beat yourself up, but don't ignore it either. Say the words you once held back. That win wasn't just me. She carried more weight than anyone saw. I should have acknowledged him. I didn't, but I will now. Because redemption isn't in being perfect. It's in being honest, especially after you've failed. Let's come back to Marcus. In Meditations, he reminds himself daily to choose character over comfort, to resist ego, to be firm in what is right, even if no one is watching. Waste no more time arguing what a good man should be. Be one. So let me ask you now, have you ever taken credit for someone else's effort directly or indirectly? What would happen if starting today, you built your reputation not on cleverness, but on clarity? Not on positioning, but on principle. Because the men who are remembered aren't the ones who grabbed the mic. They're the ones who built the stage, lifted others up, and stood tall, even in silence. That's what Stoicism looks like in action. And that's the kind of man the world learns to respect, even if he never asks for it. Part 2. Ignoring boundaries. The quiet erosion of respect. Let me ask you something. Have you ever found yourself pushing just a little too far? Maybe you meant well. Maybe you thought being available, being involved, being present was the right thing. But somewhere along the way, someone started pulling away. Their energy shifted. Conversations grew shorter. The warmth faded. And you didn't quite know why. Now let's be honest. Most men don't wake up thinking I'm going to overstep someone's boundaries today. It happens subtly, gradually. We call too often, give too much advice, ask too many questions. Show up when we weren't invited, because deep down, we confuse intrusion with intimacy. We think closeness means proximity. But that's not Stoicism. That's emotional confusion. Marcus Aurelius once said, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." And here's the truth. Respecting boundaries is not just about honoring others. It's about mastering yourself. A man who cannot recognize where he ends and someone else begins is a man who hasn't yet learned inner stillness. When you're constantly pushing to be part of someone's world, interrupting their silence, disregarding their emotional needs, what you're really saying is, my comfort matters more than your peace. Think about that. And now think about how a Stoic would move differently. He doesn't speak unless his words serve. He doesn't force presence, he offers it. He doesn't react when someone pulls away. He reflects. He waits. He watches. Because he knows the line between caring and control is thinner than pride will admit. I remember a time early in my coaching career, I had a friend who was going through a rough time. She wasn't returning calls. I kept checking in, kept sending messages. I thought I was helping, but eventually she told me plainly, "I feel like I can't breathe with you around." That cut deep, but it taught me one of the most stoic lessons of all: compassion without restraint becomes pressure. And pressure, no matter how well-intentioned, breaks things. Marcus reminds us again, waste no more time arguing what a good man should be. Be one. And part of being a good man, it's knowing when to back off, when to listen to silence, when to let others have space without taking it personally. You see, emotional boundaries are sacred, not because they keep people out, but because they give relationships room to breathe. And if you can't respect someone's boundaries, they'll never feel safe with you. And without safety, there's no trust. And without trust, respect is just a word. So how do you grow from this? First, notice your impulse. When someone sets a boundary, does your ego flare up? Do you feel rejected, ignored, maybe even offended? That's your cue. That's the part of you that still needs discipline. A mature man doesn't chase validation through closeness. He stands firm in solitude. And when he's invited in, he enters with reverence, not entitlement. And let's not just talk about relationships here. This applies everywhere: in leadership, in family, at work. A Stoic leader knows that commanding respect doesn't mean micromanaging people's time or energy. It means creating space where people feel trusted, not watched, heard, not handled. When you ignore boundaries, you lose the very thing you want most: connection. Because what you're really saying is, "I don't trust your no. I only feel secure when I'm in control." And that's not strength. That's fear in disguise. A Stoic man doesn't fear silence. He doesn't panic when someone withdraws. He honors their need for space, even when it hurts. Because he knows if it's true, it will return. If it doesn't, it was never real. So the next time someone says, "I need time," don't fill it with explanations. When they say, "Not now," don't push for later. And when they pull away, don't chase. Stand still. Hold your ground. Be the calm in their storm, not the storm they run from. Because a man who respects boundaries doesn't just earn trust. He becomes the boundary, a pillar of restraint in a world of noise. And that, my friend, is the kind of man the world listens to. The kind of man Marcus would have admired. The kind of man who doesn't need attention, because his presence speaks louder than his words. Part 3. Neglecting personal appearance. You are what you present. Let me start with something you may not expect from a Stoic. Your appearance matters. Now wait before your mind jumps to vanity status symbols or superficial fashion trends. Hear me out. I'm not talking about wearing luxury brands or chasing compliments. I'm talking about something far more important: self-respect. You see, Marcus Aurelius wasn't a man of vanity. He wasn't concerned with gold rings or royal garments. He wrote about discipline, temperance, duty. But read between the lines, and you'll find something deeper. A man who honored the day ahead. A man who prepared his body and mind each morning to meet the world with clarity and strength. He didn't dress to be admired. He dressed to show reverence for life itself. That's what personal appearance is really about. Not impressing others, but signaling to yourself that today matters. Let me tell you a story. Years ago, I coached a man in his 40s. Smart, articulate, kind-hearted. But every time he showed up, he looked like he'd just rolled out of bed. Unshaven, wrinkled shirt, scuffed shoes. He didn't care how he looked, and honestly, he believed it made him real, authentic, above appearances. But you know what the world saw. A man who didn't care about the meeting, about the people in the room, about himself. One day I asked him, "What message are you sending when you show up like that?" He paused, looked down at his clothes, and said, "I don't think I'm worth the effort." That moment changed his life. Here's the truth: most people avoid your appearance, is your handshake before you even speak. It's your first act of communication. It tells the world, this is how much I value this space, this moment, this opportunity, and myself. And when you neglect it, people sense it. They may not say it out loud, but trust me, they notice. Employers, partners, friends. They'll draw conclusions long before you open your mouth. And what about you? When you leave the house disheveled, when you avoid the mirror, when you stop grooming yourself with intention, you're slowly telling your own mind, "I don't matter today." That's a dangerous message to repeat. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Be like the cliff against which the waves continually break, but it stands firm and tames the fury of the water." Now, ask yourself, how does a man become a cliff? Not just through inner resolve, but through daily rituals that reinforce who he is. And getting dressed is one of those rituals. It's not about fashion, it's about forming a mindset. When you take time to groom, to wear clean-fitted clothes, to walk with presence, you're saying, "I am here with purpose." Let's be clear. This doesn't mean chasing the approval of others. A Stoic doesn't need applause. He doesn't dress for attention. He dresses for alignment to make sure the man in the mirror is showing up for the life he claims to want. I've seen the shift. Men who started ironing their shirts again, trimming their beard, wearing shoes that weren't worn down at the heel. Nothing extravagant, but intentional. And suddenly, opportunities opened. People leaned in. They started being treated differently. Not because the world is shallow, but because the world responds to signals of self-respect. You can't command respect if you look like you've given up. You can't lead a team, inspire a room, or hold space in a relationship if you show up like you don't belong there. People respect presence, and presence starts with posture, with eye contact, with grooming, with dress. Now let's talk about discipline, because that's really what this is. Discipline to wake up early enough to prepare. Discipline to maintain your hygiene even when no one's watching. Discipline to say, "I am worth 10 more minutes to show up with strength today." When you ignore your personal appearance, you're not being humble. You're being careless. And carelessness is never stoic. There's nothing noble about neglect. So here's what I want you to ask yourself tomorrow morning, standing in front of the mirror. What kind of man am I preparing to be today? Because the way you present yourself is the answer. Part 4. Making excuses. The silent poison of self-respect. Let me say this straight like a mentor who's lived long enough to see it in others and in himself. Excuses are seductive, and they are lethal. They don't yell or curse or punch you in the gut. They don't embarrass you publicly, but they quietly strip you of your power, one sentence at a time. You miss a deadline. Traffic was bad. You lose control. I was under too much stress. You quit on something meaningful. Now's just not the right time. Sound familiar? Here's the thing. Excuses sound reasonable. They make you feel temporarily better. But in the long run, they make you smaller. Marcus Aurelius. the emperor who led through plague, war, and betrayal, once wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events." Realize this, and you will find strength. That's the Stoic code, and excuses violate that code every single time. Because when you make an excuse, what you're really saying is, "I don't have power. Something else does." Let me tell you something personal. In my 30s at Woods, I was the king of justification. I missed workouts because it was a busy week. I didn't call my father back because work was overwhelming. I delayed launching a business idea because the market wasn't ready. But deep down, I knew. I wasn't avoiding obstacles. I was avoiding responsibility. And I was eroding my self-respect. You see, every time you make an excuse, you train your brain to believe that your circumstances have more control than your will. And once you believe that, you stop growing. That's how men become bitter. Not because life's unfair, it often is, but because they traded their agency for comfort. Excuses are easy. That's why most people make them. But the Stoic path is not for most people. It's for men who are willing to say, "This is on me, and I will face it." There's power in that. Let me ask you something. Have you ever respected a man who constantly had an excuse? Think about it. A colleague who always shows up late but blames traffic. A partner who doesn't keep his word but blames his past. A friend who never grows but blames bad luck. You don't respect that man. You might sympathize with him. You might love him. But you don't respect him. Because respect begins the moment a man says, "It's my responsibility." No excuses. And here's the good news. You don't have to be perfect. You just have to own your imperfection. I remember a day I showed up late to an important meeting. No traffic story, no elaborate explanation. I walked in and said, "That was my fault. I should have prepared better. It won't happen again." You know what happened. People respected me more than if I had arrived on time with a lie. Because honesty, when paired with ownership, builds trust. That's the heart of Stoic manhood. Not flawless performance, but unshakable integrity. Now, let's go deeper. Why do we make excuses? Because we fear the truth. We fear being seen as weak, incompetent, unworthy. But ironically, every excuse proves that fear to be true. Excuses don't protect your image. They slowly destroy it. So what's the alternative? Radical ownership. Own the mistake. Learn from it. Move forward. No dramatics. No self-pity. Just action. This mindset changes everything. At work, people start trusting you more. In relationships, others feel safer around you. And most importantly, you respect yourself again. I want you to imagine this. Tomorrow, something goes wrong. A setback. A failure. You have every reason to explain it away. But instead, you breathe. You look it in the eye. And you say, "That's on me. And I'll do better." Feel that. That's the weight of excuses being lifted. That's your strength returning. No Stoic ever became great by blaming others. They became great by mastering themselves, especially when it was inconvenient. So next time an excuse rises in your throat, let silence take its place. Let responsibility speak instead. Because in that moment, you're not just fixing a mistake, you're reclaiming your manhood. As Marcus said, waste no more time arguing what a good man should be. Be one. And good men, real men, don't excuse their way through life. They walk through it with their heads up, their eyes forward, and their hearts honest. Part 5. Being lazy. The death of potential. Let's not sugarcoat it. Laziness is not just a lack of movement. It's a betrayal. a betrayal of your potential, a betrayal of your principles, a betrayal of the man you know you could be. You may be talented, you may be intelligent, you may even have moments of greatness. But if you let laziness take root in your daily habits, none of it matters. Potential without action is wasted virtue. Marcus Aurelius didn't wake up every day craving comfort. He didn't ask, "Do I feel like leading an empire today?" He simply asked, "What is required of me?" And then he did it. No applause, no drama, just discipline. You see, the Stoic doesn't act because he feels like it. He acts because it is right to act. Because to delay what must be done is to insult the opportunity life has given you. Let me ask you, have you ever had a day where you knew what needed to be done, but chose Netflix, or put off a hard conversation, or skipped the gym, even though your body and your mind needed it? We've all been there, but the danger isn't in doing it once. The danger is in making it a pattern. Because laziness doesn't show up wearing a warning sign. It wears pajamas. It whispers, "You've worked hard enough." It offers you rest before you've earned it. And soon, you're no longer just skipping tasks. You're avoiding responsibility, avoiding discomfort, avoiding yourself. That's when laziness becomes dangerous, not because you didn't do the work, but because you stopped respecting who you're becoming. I want to share something personal. In my early 40s, I went through a season of emotional burnout. I told myself I needed rest. So I rested. A day became a week. A week became a month of numbing out, watching content, sleeping late, avoiding challenges. But here's what I noticed. The more I rested without earning it, the weaker I felt. Not physically, mentally. My confidence dropped. My clarity faded. My energy felt poisoned. Because deep down, I knew I wasn't tired. I was hiding. You see, men don't lose their power overnight. They lose it by degrees. One skipped commitment at a time. One day of procrastination. One promise to themselves broken. Quietly. Laziness is death by comfort. That's why Marcus said, "Just that you do the right thing. The rest doesn't matter. You were born to work together, to rise, to contribute." He didn't mean grind until you collapse. He meant live on purpose. A Stoic man doesn't chase dopamine. He chases duty. Not to impress, not to compete, but because his conscience won't let him do otherwise. So let me ask you this, are you honoring the man inside you, or are you letting him decay in softness? That book you keep saying you'll write, that business you've been dreaming of, that physical strength you once had, that clarity of spirit you miss, they are not dead. They are waiting for you to get off the couch. Here's the truth. The world respects effort, not intention. Action, not excuses. Follow through, not promises. You say you want to be respected. Start by showing up for yourself, even when no one's watching. Wake up earlier than you want to. Finish the thing you've been avoiding. Hold the line when your body says "Watanta." Because every time you push through laziness, you remind your mind who's in charge. You say to the world, "I'm not here for easy, I'm here for excellence." Now this doesn't mean hustle until you burn out. It means choosing the harder right over the easier wrong. Choosing forward motion over inertia. And guess what happens when you do? People start trusting you. Opportunities start appearing. But more importantly, you start respecting yourself again. Not because you're perfect, but because you're present and doing what must be done. As Marcus Aurelius reminds us, at dawn, when you have trouble getting out of bed, Tell yourself, I have to go to work as a human being. Do what nature demands. Get up and do what you were born to do. Don't wait for motivation. Don't wait to feel ready. Move, even if it's slow, even if it's ugly, because every step you take against laziness is a step back toward your strength. This is not about guilt. This is about remembering you are capable of more. So act like it. Part 6. Overreacting emotionally. The Stoic art of emotional mastery. Let me tell you something hard but necessary. If a man cannot master his emotions, he cannot be trusted. Not by the world, not by his partner, and most importantly, not even by himself. You might be strong, intelligent, charismatic, but if you crumble at criticism, explode at inconvenience, or retreat into sulking silence every time life doesn't go your way, all that potential gets overshadowed by volatility. A Stoic understands this. That's why emotional discipline is not just a virtue, it's armor. Marcus Aurelius said it best. You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. Let's break that down. You don't control traffic. You don't control your boss's mood. You don't control how your partner speaks when she's emotional. But you do control how you respond. And in that response lies the entire difference between chaos and calm, between being ruled by emotion or rising above it. Let me ask you a question. Have you ever been in a disagreement? And even though you knew the other person was emotional, you still took the bait. They raised their voice, and so did you. They went silent, and you grew resentful. They said something unfair, and you fired back with twice the heat. And then afterward, you didn't feel powerful. You felt drained, maybe ashamed. Why? Because deep down you knew. You let someone else dictate your behavior. You lost control of the one thing you were supposed to own yourself. You see, reacting emotionally is not a show of strength. It's a signal of immaturity. Stoicism teaches us not to suppress emotion, but to rule over it. That doesn't mean becoming a robot. It means you feel the anger, but don't let it drive the car. You feel the sting of disrespect, but you choose your response rather than vomit it out. That is true power. Let me share something personal. Years ago, I was in a business deal that went south. A partner betrayed my trust publicly and with real financial consequence. My gut reaction was rage. I wanted to retaliate, burn the bridge, expose him. But then I remembered something I had written in my own journal, inspired by Marcus. The best revenge is not to be like your enemy. So I paused. I sat with the discomfort. I observed the emotions, but I didn't act on them. And instead of going to war, I chose to walk away, with my name, my peace, and my reputation intact. Months later, that same man came back apologizing. Because when the dust settled, my restraint became my credibility. People noticed. They didn't praise me for being calm. They respected me for not being reckless. You see, when a man can hold steady in a storm, others instinctively trust him. Because he doesn't bring emotional chaos. He brings clarity. That's what Stoicism gives us. An inner citadel, a place inside that stays untouched, no matter what the world throws at us. Think about Marcus Aurelius. He was emperor of Rome, under pressure we can barely comprehend. Wars, plagues, betrayals. Yet in his meditations, there's not a trace of emotional outburst. Instead, you hear, "Choose not to be harmed, and you won't feel harmed." It's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters. This isn't just philosophy. This is strategy. So let me speak directly to you man to man. If you're blowing up at your kids, if your woman walks on eggshells around you, if your co-workers say you're hard to read or too intense, it's time to look in the mirror. Because people don't respect the man who reacts to everything. They respect the man who responds from principle. If you want to build a life of influence, control your tone. If you want your kids to feel safe, master your anger. If you want your partner to trust your leadership, be emotionally predictable, not explosive. And here's the good news. Emotional control is a skill, not a gift. Not something you're born with, a muscle you can build. Start small. Next time something irritates you, don't speak for 10 seconds. Breathe through the tension. Observe your thoughts. Ask what's the wise thing to do here, and choose that. It won't feel natural at first. You'll want to snap back. Defend yourself, prove your point. But over time, you'll develop a new kind of strength. The kind of strength that doesn't need to win every argument. It just needs to win the war within. So if you remember nothing else from this, remember this. Your emotions are messengers, not masters. Let them speak, but never let them rule. You are not your anger. You are not your impulses. You are the man who observes, decides, and leads himself even through emotional fire. That's Stoicism. That's manhood. And that's where true respect is born. Part 7. Playing the victim. From why me to what now? Let me ask you a question that may sting a little. Do you want to be respected, or do you want to be pitied? Because the world rarely gives you both. When you live in the mindset of a victim, always blaming, always pointing outward, you may gain sympathy. But respect quietly walks out the back door, and here's why. Playing the victim makes you small. It shrinks your power, your presence, your ability to influence the world around you. A Stoic man does not live like that. He may suffer, he may lose, but he does not collapse into self-pity. As Marcus Aurelius wrote in Meditations, the impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way. That's a powerful reversal. The very thing that blocks you becomes your path forward, but only if you meet it like a man, not like a victim. Now let's get honest here. Life is unfair. People lie. You might have been betrayed. Maybe your father wasn't present. Your partner left. You were passed over for promotion. I'm not here to minimize any of that. Pain is real. But here's the Stoic truth. Your pain is not your permission to stay powerless. You see, when you constantly say, "It's their fault. I didn't have the same chances, or the world's just against me," you give away your authority. You hand the keys of your life to someone else, and then complain that you're not going anywhere. Let me tell you something I've learned the hard way. Victimhood is seductive. It gives you an excuse not to try. It keeps you in comfort. It invites others to say, "Poor you," and for a moment, that feels good. But in the long run, it eats away at your dignity like rust on steel. A man who wants to be respected must trade pity for power. I remember a man I coached years ago, mid-30s, sharp mind, but stuck. He told me all the reasons he couldn't move forward. His ex was emotionally manipulative. His boss didn't value him. His parents raised him without affirmation, and all of that was true. But after a few sessions, I looked him in the eye and asked, "So what are you going to do with it?" He went silent, because that's the real pivot. Victimhood keeps asking, "Why me?" But responsibility asks, "What now?" The Stoic doesn't deny the pain. He absorbs it, reflects on it, and then acts from principle. You lost a job, okay. What skill will you develop now? She left you, all right. What can you learn about your own patterns? You were disrespected. Then how will you rise with more self-respect than ever before? That's the way of the man who refuses to play small. Let's bring it home with Marcus again. He didn't live a soft life. He buried children, ruled through plagues, was betrayed by his most trusted general, his own adopted son. And he wrote his meditations alone, often sick, while carrying the weight of an empire. But not once did he write, "Why is this happening to me?" Not once did he crumble into bitterness. Instead, he wrote, "When you arise in the morning, think of what a privilege it is to be alive, to think, to enjoy, to love." A man like that earns respect. Because he didn't wait for fairness, he created meaning. Let me ask you directly, as one man to another, are you carrying wounds that you still blame others for? Do you spend more energy retelling your story of betrayal than writing your future? Are you secretly hoping someone will come and save you? If so, it's time to return to the citadel, the place inside you that says enough. This is my life, and I will answer it like a man. The world won't hand you peace. It won't make it fair. But it will respond when you stop being a victim and start taking full ownership. It may not be your fault, but it is your responsibility. That's not harsh. That's freedom. So the next time you're tempted to spiral into blame, pause. Take a breath. Stand up straighter. And ask, how can I grow through this? That question alone could change your life. If there's one truth that echoes through every Stoic teaching we've explored today, it's this. You don't earn respect by demanding it. You earn it by becoming a man who respects himself first. In each of the 7 habits we've covered, taking credit for others' work, ignoring boundaries, neglecting your appearance, making excuses, being lazy, overreacting emotionally, and playing the victim, you were shown not just what to avoid, but what to embody instead. Discipline, humility, self-awareness, ownership, quiet strength. These aren't flashy traits. They don't trend on social media. They won't get you applause from the crowd. But they will build something far more powerful: dignity. And here's what I've learned over 6 decades of living and leading by Stoic principles. The man who walks with quiet dignity is the one others naturally follow. Not because he talks loud, not because he chases approval, but because his character speaks before he ever opens his mouth. Marcus Aurelius never needed to shout to be heard. His strength was in restraint. His clarity was forged through self-control, and his legacy endures not because he sought attention, but because he lived with inner coherence. Now I'll ask you a simple but powerful question. Which part of today's message resonated most with you? Was it the realization that you've been overreacting instead of responding with reason? Was it seeing how your appearance reflects your respect for yourself and for life? Was it finally owning that you've been blaming others for too long? Whatever it was, use that as your starting point. You don't need to fix everything overnight, but you do need to start walking in a new direction, one deliberate, honest step at a time. That's how a Stoic lives, and that's the kind of man the world quietly admires, even if they never say it out loud. If today's message stirred something in you, I invite you to stay on this path with me. There's so much more to explore, from deeper Stoic mindsets to real-life application, to the kind of internal transformation that lasts. So don't just scroll past this moment. Subscribe to the channel Stoic Outlook. Like this video to let me know you found value. Share it with a brother, a friend, or someone who needs this message today. And drop a comment below. Let me hear what landed for you. Let's build this community together. Because remember, respect doesn't come from the outside in. It's built from the inside out. And you, my friend, are more than capable of becoming the kind of man who commands it. With stillness, with strength, with purpose. I'll see you in the next video.